Okay, thanks everybody. Let's come on back together. Now, if we remember, the rule is that when we divide by a negative, we always flip the sign. We said that just a few minutes ago. That's like our main rule. And then the other thing we want to do is always make sure that we get our variable first. So we do a remix just to get that variable first. Let's take a look at number 4. Okay, I'm going to rewrite it down here, and I'm going to treat this just like a normal equation. And this just helps. I know it's got this greater than sign right here, but don't let that trick you. Just think of it, pretend like it's an equal sign right now. Okay, first thing we want to do is to combine like terms, right? So we've got this negative 3b and a 2b right here. So negative 3 plus 2 would be negative b, or negative 1b, and then 4. And then copy everything else the same, 4. Now, if we want to get everything to the other side, away from that b or that negative b, I want to subtract 4 here. Let me use a different color. Minus 4. Yeah, minus 4. Again, pretend that's an equal sign. It looks more confusing otherwise. 4 minus 4 would be 0. Keep that greater than. And then we have a negative b. Are we done? No, we're not done. We cannot be done yet. We have to get rid of that negative. So now I'm going to use my pumpkin spice color here. And I have to divide by negative 1. Or because remember, this is like an invisible 1 right here, right? Divide by negative 1. Yeah. Divide by negative 1. So come on over here. So I'm going to go 0 divided by negative 1 is still 0. Now, I just divided by a negative. So that means we have to flip that sign. Yes. Welcome, everybody, to my favorite game show called Flip That Sign. So we keep everything the same. And then what we need to do is, instead of the arrow pointing to the sign pointing to the right, it now has to point at the left to that 0. And then we keep that b right there. Okay? So far, everybody with me, right? All we did is solve this problem. So if this was an equal sign, it would say like b equals 0, right? And then because we divided by a negative, the only real rule we have in this, if we divide by a negative, we have to flip the sign. Now what I do, I think this next step makes it easier. Now you might think it's adding more work, but I promise you, in the long run, this is going to be easier for you to graph. Let's do a remix. Remix. And a remix is where we want to get the variable first. So we read this as a b something to a number, right? So right now this reads as 0 is less than b. But what it should read is b is greater than 0, right? Which is saying the same thing. I'm just reading it backwards. So instead of reading it backwards, I'm going to rewrite it. So remix means I'm going to write b. I'm going to keep everything the same. B. Now, where's my arrow pointing? My arrow is pointing at the 0. So I'm going to still have it be pointing at the 0 right here. Now, it looks like I flipped the sign, because in the top one it's pointing to the left, and here it's pointing to the right. However, I did not flip the sign. I kept the sign the same. I just flipped the entire problem over. So here's our final answer. B is greater than 0. That means b, which is some number, we don't know what this number is, some number is greater than 0. So now, let's go over to our chart, and I'm going to go to my 0, because that's my number. It's saying some number, some mystery number. We don't know what it is, but it is greater than 0. So we go to 0, we put a circle there, and then we know that that b, whatever number it is, it's greater than 0. So we're going in the greater than direction. Now, part of this remix, the reason I like to do that is now it shows that this sign right here always, if you have the variable first, this sign always points in the same direction as our number line. Always, if you have the variable first. So if you had it the opposite, see how confusing that is? 0 is less than b. Technically, that's still correct, but it's harder to graph that. Okay? All right, any questions on that? Let me just pause this. Let me stop this and start this. Stop that and start this. Here we go.